as the reality of the huge economic impact Donald Trump's tariffs will have on the EU, specifically on Ireland. We've been hearing from various Irish politicians today. Well, it was only a matter of time before Frank Spencer himself, Simon Harris on Taoiseach, the TikTok Taoiseach, came out of the woodwork and was let loose on the media and in the Dáil. I am of the belief at this time that Harris is being used to further sabotage Ireland. The man is an unmitigated disaster and he is an unmitigated liability. Every time he opens his mouth, things get worse. And here's three really brief little clips of him taking the microphone in the last 24 hours to give his reaction on what's happening with relation to tariffs and Ireland and his further assessment of Donald Trump. Remember, he's already offended him back last year, calling him an old Dáil and refusing to apologise for it. Well, the chickens are coming home to roost. Let's see this. Now, this here is a clip that he put up on TikTok. This is a grown-ass man who's actually taking to predominantly a young teenager's platform to try and put himself across as a cool guy, a cool and hip politician, and he fails miserably. This is his take as he would provide it to the youth of Ireland, I would say, in the whole, to explain what he thinks of tariffs. And I'm actually doubling this clip up because it's so short. He's so bad. Listen.
At an EU level to find a negotiated solution and a way forward. That's where all my focus is going to be. Tariffs are bad. They're bad for consumers. They're bad for the economy in Europe. They're bad for the economy in America. In the days ahead, we must work at an EU level to find a negotiated solution and a way forward. That's where all my focus is going to be. Tariffs are...
I'm just looping this. It's only 10 seconds long. 10 seconds long. Tariffs are bad. Tariffs are bad. We must work with the EU. Tariffs are bad. Tariffs are bad. The EU is bad. The EU is bad. If Ireland wants to survive, it needs to get the hell out of the EU. And this man is bad. He's rotten to the core.
Bad. They're bad for consumers. They're bad for the economy in Europe. They're bad for the economy in America. In the days ahead, we must work at an EU level to find a negotiated solution and a way forward. That's where all my focus is going to be. Tariffs are bad. They're bad for consumers. They're bad for the economy in Europe. They're bad for the economy in America. In the days ahead, we must work at an EU level to find a negotiated solution and a way forward. That's where all my focus is going to be.
That's where all his focus is going to be. Working on an EU level. It's actually bringing tears to my eyes, this. Don't worry. I'm not crying. I'm not weeping. It's like listening and watching Simon Harris is like peeling an onion. It makes your eyes water and it makes you choke up a little bit. So that was him on TikTok. This is him in the Dáil. Listen to what he says there, where he further swipes at Trump, who ultimately is holding this hammer over Ireland's head.
Tariffs are bad. They're bad for Ireland. They're bad for Europe. They're bad for the US economy. They're bad for consumers.
They're bad for
jobs. And it is deeply... Tariffs are bad. They're bad for Ireland. They're bad for Europe. They're bad for the US economy. They're bad for consumers. They're bad for growth. They're bad for jobs. And it is deeply regrettable, the actions that we saw by the President of the United States of America last night. It seemed absolutely clear, particularly in recent days, that President Trump was determined to have this moment, what I describe as a moment of chaos, in terms of an announcement of tariffs, the biggest change in terms of trading approach in probably a century. He's had that moment now, and what now needs to happen is negotiation.
He's just took to the world stage again, telling Trump that he believes he's had a moment of chaos. It's deeply troubling and very bad. Terrible thing that he's done. But now we must sit and negotiate. Is this going to be the mouthpiece for Ireland? Is this going to be Ireland's chief negotiator? It would appear so. He's been given an awful lot of airtime and he's been given an awful lot of media time and time in the Dáil to stand before cameras and dig Ireland into a deeper hole. And every time he speaks, he keeps banging on about the EU. Ireland needs to leave the EU. It needs to leave the EU. And lastly, Here he is talking about Big Pharma. So it's only a matter of time before the hammer falls on it. Some commentators are celebrating today, saying, well, okay, it wasn't as bad as we thought because Big Pharma wasn't factored into the equation. Big Pharma's coming. The blow from Big Pharma could put the 20%, make it look like nothing. But Simon has been talking with his EU counterparts, talking about Big Pharma with EU people, talking with Ursula von der Leyen about Big Pharma. And Ursula von der Leyen knows a thing or two about Big Pharma. She got very cosy with Albert Bourla from Pfizer during the lockdown COVID years. And a lot of very questionable deals were being done with Big Pharma, with Ursula von der Leyen at the helm, specifically with Bourla, that nothing was ever done about. So he's been talking with our Ursula, who also happens to be an unelected representative in the role of president of the EU. Let's hear what he says. We're not alone. We're not alone. Like-minded EU going down the toilet. Going down the toilet. And you know who didn't get hit so hard by this? The UK. The UK. They got slapped with a 10% tariff. Ireland got slapped with a 20% tariff. And on the island of Ireland, up in the north, 10%. Down in the so-called south, 20%. If ever there was a case to be made where it won't affect somebody so badly to being part of Brexit, it would be Northern Ireland. But here we have Simon banging on about his EU counterparts. A dozen EU countries have been talking with the EU, and then he goes on to kiss von der Leyen's ass. You'll hear it here. It's just a nauseous little runt. As soon as next Tuesday, President von der Leyen, slurp, slurp, kiss that ass harder, Simon. So that's who we have. That's who we have fronting the response, really fronting the response to Ireland getting hit with these tariffs. Micheál has been on the stage today as well, but Harris seems to have been grabbing an awful lot more airtime. I just believe it has to be an act of sabotage. Who in their right mind would pick that to represent their country, to go into negotiations with the likes of Trump or form up an EU collective to try and fight back against this? Words fail me. Let me know what your thoughts, comments and opinions are below in the comments section. Like the video if you like it. Give it a thumbs down if you don't like it. Doesn't matter to me. It's all interaction, and that helps spread the word. Cut and paste the link, dump it into your Facebook group, your WhatsApp group, send it to your friends, send it to people you don't like. Just get the word out there and let people see what a liability Harris is and see the damage that it's causing Ireland to be in the EU. It needs to get out, get the hell out ASAP. But for now, I'm Rick Munn, No Risk, No Reward Media, and I am over and out.